This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to my review of Legacy of the Force Inferno. And this is definitely one of the most insane books. So much happens in this, and just everything is just so major in this. It's hard to decide what storyline to talk about first because they're all just super, super major. And I guess the least major one is the one where Jaina and Jag are forced to go and try and help the Jedi at the Academy that Jason took hostage on the world of Ossus. And this is honestly just a pretty insane storyline as they are going and Jason's becoming a lot like his grandfather. He's holding kids hostage to make sure that the Jedi don't retaliate against him and that they will go and listen to him. It's just a very, very crazy storyline, and it has a lot of death, and there's a good amount of younglings dying until they get their lightsabers back and are able to go and fight them off. It's a really insane storyline, and as I said, this is the least important of them. Going to Han and Leia, they also have some pretty important stuff where they're going, and they're trying to get the Wookiees to not side with Jason. They want them to at least remain neutral and not help Jason out as he is becoming more and more deadly to the galaxy. Then they also, after that, go to do the same thing to Hapes after Luke and the Jedi abandon the Galactic Alliance and convince the Wookiees to do the same. But I'll be talking about that storyline in just a little bit. The Hape stuff is also interesting, where you see the fallen Tahiri Vela go and try to arrest them after Jason has been manipulating her. And I think the biggest problem with this was they just didn't have enough time to develop it. It feels like she very quickly turns, and it just doesn't have enough time for them to go and take the storyline on. I feel like they probably should have had her be manipulated a lot more in this book, or saved it for another book, because ultimately it just didn't work that well because there was only like one scene with her and Jason, and that was really it. Now going into some of the other storylines, there's a storyline with Ben, and you just honestly just feel really bad for him. He's the only one who's figured out what's actually happened. He is going to he wants to get revenge on Jason for killing his mother. He knows that it was Jason. Even though there is a smaller storyline with the character Alma where she is claiming credit and trying to make it think people think it was her. And she runs into I believe it's the one Sith, although it's not really fully confirmed in this, on Korriban. And they go and they're trying to see what they can get out of her and only let her go because she says that she killed Luke, and Luke would track her down to Korriban and discover these Sith. So it is interesting, and I mean, it doesn't go into it too much in this one. It's also mentioned briefly in the next one, although there's a little more setup in the next one, and I haven't got to that part yet in the book. But just going through this, honestly, the story is it's just really interesting with Ben as he is well, when Jason manipulates him into going after Calomus to try and assassinate him, Ben doesn't want to and goes in and tries to make it look like he tried to assassinate him, although he does fail and almost wants to die, so he attacks attacks Ben and puts him in a situation where he does die. And that is the scenario that pushes Luke to leave the Alliance, which again I'll talk about in just a little bit. But then towards the end of the storyline, Ben is trying to make himself seem like he's loyal to Jason, so he can go and try to assassinate him for killing his mother, and while Jason sees through this, Ben is close to being able to try and do it, and he fails. Ben then is being tortured by Jason when Luke fakes his death to come in and rescue him. But again, I'm going to talk about all that Luke stuff together because Luke has some really major moments, and it's really interesting with him in this. And yeah, it kind of sucks to be Luke in this novel, and it was just kind of hard to see him here because he just had to suffer through so much and just feel really bad for Luke. And it's not in the Last Jedi where, oh my God, who is this guy? It is someone who literally just lost his wife. He was tricked into doing a revenge killing by someone who wanted to cover up for the real killer, and he has to figure out who killed his wife. He has to deal with him acting out in anger and the fact that his nephew is just acting completely insane. Through it, Luke at first tries to go and just try to do his best to get the relationship between him and Jason fixed. And when he just realizes that honestly there's just really no way to do it, after he learns that Ben went to kill Miss, although that's technically a misunderstanding of the events where Ben didn't kill him, as I mentioned earlier. It was more of a unfortunate sort of planned accident. The just entire thing was just super interesting for Luke to have to go through his moral problems once he realizes that he goes and he just completely screws Jason over at this massive battle at, I believe it was Fondor or I think Kuat, one of the major shipyards, and the Corellian Confederation was trying to take it, and the only would have won with the Jedi's help. But the Jedi go and abandon them and go to Kashyyyk, and that leads us to just the most crazy part of it. Luke having to, just go make his decision, but that is not as insane as what happens next. As with Jason, he is now fully Darth Titus. He is not caring about anything. He even talks about how he now resents and hates his brother Anakin, who, I mean, he's been dead for, well, I think at least 10 to 15 years, and just he's going back in time to flow walk with Tahiri, he is beginning to despise him, and that's mostly because he is the good, pure person that Jason used to be. And it's just honestly so sad to see how such a good person fell to be a monster like this. And that is just perfectly shown as when the Wookiees decide to back out of the Alliance and want to have Jason go and stand down. Jason does the most, at least horrific thing he's done up to this point, which is order for his forces to open fire on Kashyyyk. And this goes and absolutely devastates the planet. The forests are set ablaze, and he wants to burn it all down in an attempt to get the Corellians to back off their attack and be forced to help the Wookiees. And it is just such a evil and just messed up move. And it doesn't really excuse the fact that Jason's like, oh, I feel bad that I have to do this with their traitors. It is a horrific move no matter what, and it just shows just how evil and corrupting the dark side is. It took someone who was just such a nice, caring person that cared about preserving all life and didn't want to go and wipe out a species like the Vong, and twisted him into just a monster that went and destroyed the home of his father's best friend and one of the people who protected his life on more ways than he could count, and is the reason his brother was able to live long enough to go and save everyone. It is just so despicable what he's become, but it's just so compelling. He is just a complete monster here, and it's even more tragic what happens with Ben as he, to try and keep this cover of being Jason's apprentice and being in good standing with him, has to recommend for him to fire on the cities to get Jason to lower his guard, and it ultimately fails for him. And as I said earlier, Jason goes on an attack, and he sets up a scenario where he thinks that he has forced Jaina to go and kill Luke. Luke instead cuts himself off from the Force and uses that to hide his presence to be able to go and rescue his son, who he was able to track onto the Anakin Solo. And as he infiltrates it, he goes and has this absolutely savage battle with Jason to the near death. It is just very, very intense, and the only reason he pulls back is because he sees that Ben wants to give into his anger and hate and kill Jason, and he has to pull his son back from doing that. If not, he would have finished Jason off there and saved the galaxy a lot more suffering. But yeah, honestly, it was just intense. It was such an incredible story, as I said, and I just really, really enjoyed it. But now getting towards the end of it, as I mentioned earlier, Han and Leia go to Hapes to convince them also to abandon the alliance, and Tanaka goes, and Jason thinks that she's there to help, and she reveals that he's just crossed the line and she can't stand by him anymore, and asks for his surrender. Jason refuses and nearly gets his entire fleet destroyed until he's able to be given a small little out where he just more or less makes a bluff based on a little assistance from Elma, and at that point he barely manages to escape. The Anakin Solo is in ruins as long as with the rest of his fleet, and that all has to be repaired. The effects of that attack are still being felt in the next book, and I'll just say Anakin Solo goes through even worse in that book, based on the section I finished just a little earlier. But yeah, honestly, it's just super compelling here. I also like how Mara's body went into the Force after Jason showed up as a clue to who her murderer was, but Luke took that the wrong way. And it's just being fully honest, it's an incredible story. I've been really, really enjoying this. I read through this one in about a week, and in between the section where I talk about everything besides Luke, and then from the start part where I started up with Luke, I read another like 20, 30 pages. I'm like in the I think early to mid 200s. I think I'm like 220-ish in that book, and there's like 350 pages. So I'll probably be done with that by the end of the week, and yeah, honestly, just really, really enjoyed this. I think it was just such a great and compelling novel. It had just so many dark twists and turns, and yeah, I knew about the bombing of Kashyyyk, but it's just so much more brutal when you read it. But yeah, honestly, I just want to know what you think. Please leave me in the comments, and I'll see you next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.